Hello everyone, welcome to my end of semester statistics project on the topic the type of governance impact on Ghanaian behaviour towards corruption and equality for the law. My name is Ishmael Asiedu, pursuing a degree in business administration at Ashesi University. In this presentation, I will offer a quick overview of why I chose this topic as well as my research question. I will also go over the method I used to conduct my influential test before sharing the data and then discussing my findings. As stated earlier, my topic of interest is the type of governance impact on Ghanaian behavior towards corruption and equality before the law. During my research, I observed that a country's level of corruption is determined by the sort of governance in place. People like democratic governance because it is transparent to the public in such a way that corruption is uncommon compared to the other forms of government. Then I also discovered that regardless of how eager people are to obey the law, the vast majority of them are nevertheless treated unequally before the law. My literature review confirmed by J.W. Musala, who suggested that countries that are relatively more democratic are less corrupt. And Zalo also added that countries that prefer autocracy are very close to experiencing adverse corruption. This shows clearly that the type of governance impact determines the level of corruption and inequality a country will be facing. Prior to the research that I did, my research question was the type of governance impact on Ghanaians' behavior towards corruption and equality before the law. Now, the association one that I tested says, is there an association between the level of corruption and then the support for democracy? And then the two says, is there a link between the frequency with which people are treated unequally and their adherence to the law? Now, I use the statistical analysis software R&R Studio to look further into the research. Under the method, I will talk about two things: sample data and then the measures I use to subset my data to obtain the necessary information. The data I used was the Afrobarometer with the data collation state starting from 1999 and ending in 2019. My sampling type used was a sample random sampling with a total of 2,400 and a response of 2,052 people, which is approximately 85.5% response rate. After retrieving the dataset, I further grouped them into various categories given in the Afrobarometer and also looked into the variable label and its corresponding association. That's the type of governance, people's support for democracy, and the various categories other responses to people must obey the law. With regard to my influential test, since my explanatory and response variables are categorical, then there is a need for me to use the chi-square test for the independence influential test use. For my first association, my null hypothesis says there is no relationship between level of corruption and support for democracy. The alternative says there is a relationship between level of corruption and support for democracy. For my association two, it says there is no relationship between people strictly obeying the law and being treated unequally. The alternative says there is a relationship between people strictly obeying the law and being treated unequally. From the result, my perception towards corruption, as stated earlier, that democracy would be less corruption change. For the first association, we could see that people prefer democratic system of governance because they thought it reduces the level of corruption. Now, from the finding, we could see that the p-value is greater than the alpha, which suggests that we failed to reject the nine hypothesis. After testing the association between the level of corruption and the support for democracy, the research estimated that there is no relationship between the level of corruption and the support for democracy. Also, from the association 2, the p-value is less than the alpha. That means there is sufficient evidence to reject the null hypothesis. So we can now say indeed that There is a relationship between the frequency with which people are treated unequally and the adherence to the law. From the research, we can say that most people think that democracy is preferable to any kind of government and that democracy reduces corruption. And on the other way around, people also think it doesn't matter the kind of government, corruption is everywhere in those institutions. People are willing to obey the law at all costs, but then people are constantly and often treated unequally under the law. With all this, we must ensure equality amongst ourselves.